That's why homeschooling is so powerful, because as a parent, you're able to make a connection with your kids where you are gifting them ideas in ways that they can understand it. And it opens their mind, it makes them think, and they are appreciative to that. There's a connection made.
We talked about how kids oftentimes they're falling into the traps of the secular world. And that's really what's happening with so many kids today, with adults as well, right? I mean, it's not just the kids who are falling into this trap, but adults are as well. And we're seeing kids and adults alike. It's so shocking to me as we see prominent Christian leaders, oftentimes pastors, maybe they're musicians, maybe they're authors, and they're just saying, yeah, I don't believe this anymore. I don't believe this Bible. I don't really believe in God. I don't believe the things that I once said I believed. Why is this happening with adults and kids alike? Why are people walking away from the faith and leaning more and more into secular culture?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been teaching for over 20 years now, most of which has been in the secular colleges and universities. And so the things I used to teach were, in the secular world anyway, was intro to philosophy, ethics, medical ethics, logic, things like that. And what I've seen is the world has tools that it uses to indoctrinate. It begins with an iPhone, typically, and social media, trying to teach kids that being special is the most important thing you could possibly imagine. And so if you're unique, if you have some kind of niche, then you will make it in this world and you will be special. That niche has been instructed through TV shows, through media, that the way you can become special is start to question your gender, start to question who you're attracted to. Anything sexual in that way, even if we have to sexualize children, we'll do it to make sure everyone can find their path to the world's way of thinking, which is a worldview. They almost don't even mind if you keep a little bit of your faith. If you attend church and that's your thing, that's awesome. I mean, that's great.
Sure.
But make sure you're getting on board with the rest of us with this LGBTQ stuff and all that. Because if you're not on board, then you're just really unloving, and that wasn't Jesus loving. And you want to be loving and special, and they're making all these promises to the kids. So by the time, and this is something that's really interesting to me. You have a lot of people starting to homeschool because they see how horrible the public high school is, and in public elementary schools. They finally seen it. They saw what they're saying. They pull them out. A lot of people are starting to homeschool because of that, which is great. But then they say, well, now that Johnny's 18, I'm going to send him to a public high school or a public college or public university. And they think this way, and it makes sense. But they think, well, they're going to live at home. I'll send them to the local community college or university, and they'll stay at home with me. And they'll be okay because we'll still be going to church, their same church. They love their youth group, and they're just going to go part-time to this school. Everything will be fine. But what they don't understand is that at public colleges and universities, these are well-trained, if I can put it this way, secular evangelicals who are trying to win over the student. And it doesn't take long. I don't know if you've seen the movie God Is Not Dead.
Yeah.
The first one, not the 12th one that's come out.
Right.
But they really paint a picture that's just isn't reality. They paint a picture that the kid goes into the secular college and the secular professor is like, "Who in here's a Christian?" They're like, "I'm a Christian," and they're like this big fight, and of course the kid, knows way more than the PhD, so that makes sense. And then he wins at the end. Well, in no way looks like that. At least has not been my experience in my 20-some years of teaching. What I've seen is that the professor will try and pinpoint who the Christians are. They might even say, "Who in here is religious?" Just so I know, who, what's going on. And the kids will raise their hand and they'll say, "You know what, that's awesome." we live in this cynical world, and for you to hold on to your faith is brave. That's cool. Immediately, the kid says, oh, this isn't like God is not dead. They lower their guard down because this guy's cool. This guy, says that I'm brave. Yeah, he gets me. And then the professor goes on and he'll say, but there are problems with these, with religions. For instance, with Christianity of the Bible, but a lot of people don't agree on things. So they have different denominations and denomination after denomination. But in this class, it might be a physics class. In this class, we have math. And that's just one denomination. We can all agree on math, can't we? Can't we? And so when a kid isn't raised with a biblical worldview, he might think math is one of those things that's neutral. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we can agree on math because math is math. There's no biblical worldview of math, is there? And so what the professor does is he immediately separates them from their faith. And they didn't even know it because he just said, in this room, we're going to talk about math. Religion's great, glad you have it, but here it's going to be math. And he's making a distinction already that's making the student feel at rest because he doesn't feel like he's going to be fighting. And at the same time, he just separated them from their faith, saying your faith doesn't have anything to do with math. Your faith doesn't have anything to do with the template we're going to use to criticize this literature. Your faith has nothing to do with the kind of rigor we're going to do in this classroom, which is neutral stuff. And if the kid is used to that, if your kids are used to, religious stuff is over here, which is great, love it, but everything else is neutral, they're going to fall for it immediately. Mm-hmm. And what a professor will do is he will then give them something very sophisticated to understand, something that's very hard to understand, very complex, but they package it in a way that helps them get it, and they make a connection. That's what happens. That's why homeschooling is so powerful, because as a parent, you're able to make a connection with your kids where you are gifting them ideas in ways that they can understand it. And it opens their mind, it makes them think, and they are appreciative to that. There is a connection made. Well, the same thing happens in college. And all the professor has to do is package that in such a way that if they accept that and they now are smart, they're now intelligent, they get what the professor gets, you just have to deny parts of your Bible now. Not the whole thing, but just parts of it. And that's where it begins. And that's how the process, and it's a very useful tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes not even denying it, but thinking of it as fiction, right? Noah and the flood, like that's not realistic. It's just a story in the Bible. That didn't actually happen. There was not actually a worldwide flood. And all of these things, Daniel in the lion's den and David and Goliath, like those things didn't actually happen. But then that leads down to the road of a man dying on the cross and raising from the dead 3 days later. Well, that's just fiction too. It all leads ultimately to their disbelief in the cross, right? Yes. And that's a scary place to be. Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.